Yeah, no, thanks. That sets a really good, I think, stage for the discussions to ensue. Yeah, so from my perspective, because I come from technology consulting background, so always the business value is at the
Yes.
center of everything. That yeah.
Yes.
So lot of things that you may find, slightly different on a different pedestal in terms of like because everything has to be
Yes.
driven by business value, right?
Absolutely.
However, just reiterating on most of the things you covered. So yeah, so biggest challenge right now, in my view, for artificial
Hmm.
intelligence field as
Hmm.
such is we lack a proper formal definition of the AI itself.
Hmm.
Probably we have a definition. I mean, a lot of people will argue on that. Like we have, so definition is very simple. Like machines should be able to do what an intelligent human is able to do at a scale, right? In an automated fashion.
Yes.
What so so Claude Shannon was the guy, right? He was a brilliant engineer again, and
Yes.
he single-handedly. So before Shannon, in information theory, everyone was struggling with the concept of whether what the information is, whether it's in the copper wire, how to measure it, right? So if you want to really appreciate that confusion before Shannon in the field of information theory, you just need to see how things are, going in artificial intelligence right now. Single-handedly, with a single formula, Shannon just invented the future, in my view. I mean, a lot of people may disagree. Information is nothing but uh, P log 1 by P minus P log P, where P is the probability of a symbol occurrence, right? With a single formula, he provided a formal, definition of information, which can be applied across the board. And now we see the benefits of that everywhere, right? In the mobile
Hmm.
and internet.
Hmm. Hmm.
That is missing big time in AI field, in my view. We have a lot of papers, Gary Marcus and everyone trying to define what intelligence is, but we are nowhere near that. That was, in my view, that strategic inflection point for the information theory field, and we are struggling with that as first point. Yeah, and just segueing into what Alok was referring to, this connectionist and neuron, and so somehow what happened is there developed a real tension between people who were saying that we should the good old fashioned AI go fi, right? So we should employ symbols computations for reasoning, right? Which is what. So if I divide that AI technology field into two broad spectrums, that is where so your question becomes really important. What is the difference between AI and ML? So a lot of people ask this question because when AI started with this Dartmouth conference in 1956 and Pitts and McCulloch and all that you referred to, so mostly it was GoFi, like symbolic AI, right? We build expert systems, right? We encode all the knowledge of the world in the formal system, and we reason with it, and hopefully one day there will be some sort of an emergent property, and that will be intelligent like us. So that was, I think, the premise of that.
Yes. Yes.
And then there were, on the other hand, there were people like connectionist approach, artificial neural network. Like they were saying that it's just too onerous a task to encode all the knowledge in a formal, machine, and we shouldn't be doing that. Whereas we should enable these machines. We should have a data structure which can learn from the data, from the pattern on its own, right? So these two broad strands of AI. So the second one, connectionist approach, is mostly machine learning, right? And good old-fashioned AI is symbolic. Now the problem is I don't have a pedigree like Alok. I'm a PhD dropout, so people won't take my my claims very seriously, I suppose, but that's okay. So as a layman, kind of a approach or pitch, in my view, is that we absolutely need more, well, both of that. We need learning as well as reasoning. So current systems which do learning really well, which are neural network systems, right? And they so machine learning basically is nothing but this curve fitting, right? It's just interpolation. So you have a lot of data on x-axis and a lot of data on y-axis, and you have very smart statistical methodologies which can give you a function which will actually meet that, and you can predict now next x value, what will be the y value. It's very simple, right? I mean, they will like is in the details, but yeah, at the foundational level, at the theoretical level, it's very simple. So it does the correlation, it does the curve fitting, it does the interpolation really well. So it learns from the data. However,
Yes.
it can't reason. So the challenge is that you can't take that learning from one domain, or even within a domain, from one data set to a slightly different data set, and it just collapses. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And then there are certain use, again, not discounting all the achievements that we have been able to accomplish in last 20 years in this space. So deep learning, so this troika, right? LeCun and Jeffrey Hinton, and what is the third guy, Joshua Bengio. So they seem to think that they are the founders of the deep learning, and they seem to think that you don't need any reasoning capacity. So reasoning, somehow it's an unsolved problem. They accept and they agree, but they say right approach is reasoning itself somehow has to emerge from this, neural network itself, which is proving to be less and less effective. And so
Yes.
for a very very siloed, very narrow use cases, like identifying cats in Facebook photos, and mostly in computer vision, I think. So it's
Right.
proving to be really effective. However, if you go to natural language processing and self-driving cars and all those other applications which are mission
Mm.
critical, have-
Mm.
so very interesting thing. So there is something called GPT-3. So GPT-3 is a language model based on deep learning, right? So LeCun, launched that, and they tried to put it on a suicide prevention hotline. Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
And so imagine the criticality of getting the context in such
Mm.
a such a
Mm.
important field. So there
Mm.
was this conversation where the guy said, like, hey, how are you, and little bit of background. It's all on the internet.
Mm.
And then he says, I want to commit suicide. So
Mm.
GPT-3 says, yeah, please go ahead. so 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 imagine the disaster that, same with the self-driving cars. I mean, there's no
Yes.
margin of error, right? You can kill people on the
Yes.
road. So
Yes.
that's slightly different from just tagging your friends or a cat or a dog on a Facebook photo. Even if you get that wrong, who cares?
Mm.
There,
Mm. Mm.
again, there are some use cases within that space as well, which it could be quite serious.
Mm. Mm.
But self-driving car and conversational bots, there are very very serious business. You may end up giving wrong information, and you may
Mm.
get sued, right? So wrong financial advice. So
Absolutely.
it felt really flat straight away. All this deep learning work within that
Mm.
space, and there is a kind of a very strong sense that we need mm, a new approach, new method, which combines both reasoning as well as learning. So
Right.
neurosymbolic AI, I'm pretty sure you would be
Yes. Yes.
across that. So that is what is being currently assessed and explored. So there's a lot of excitement around how can we maybe plug that
Yes.
in. A lot of people, including Gary Marcus, is saying that that's the next wave of AI, in my view. But the
Mm.
original idea is, as Alok alluded to as well, is that see, in intelligence is all about the context. It's common sense. Common sense is the dark matter of the, dark matter in the universe.
Right.
It's 95% of the
Yes.
universe is dark matter. So
Yes.
that common sense, that context is absolutely critical. Like, people talk about, okay, so AI can now even write poems. So what AI can that you dump million, poem and ashar, and and then AI can come up with some weird,
Mm.
poetry. So because
Mm.
most of the poetry is weird, you will think that AI has been creating poetry. But what people miss is, like, when so poets go through a lot of pain, and that trauma, and they observe
Subjectivity.
the world in a, it's a very subjective experience, and then they say something, so you will be able to relate to that, right? So
Yes.
that bit is seriously missing, and I believe we have not even scratched the surface on that.
Yes.
And I believe next frontier in AI is to have a equivalent of Shannon's information formula.
Yes.
How do you, if you want to formalize this field, so how do you define intelligence? I mean,
Yes.
so you should be able to have a formal method to assess whether this system is more intelligent than
Mm.
that
Then the
system,
other.
or in this
Yes.
context, and how much. There has to be omega value or something. So that, I think, is missing big time right now, and
Yes.
some sensible people are realizing, yeah, and coming to terms to that.